will be used to influence unfairly the outcome of elections. In the McConnell case, the Supreme Court recognized its long-standing support for the constitutionality of bans on corporate campaign expenditures going back to its Buckley decision in 1976 from the court's decision. Since our decision in Buckley, Congress's power to prohibit corporations and unions from using funds in their treasuries to finance advertisements expressly advocating the election or defeat of candidates in federal elections has been firmly embedded in our law. Additionally, in 1982, the National Right to Work Committee case, the Supreme Court, in an opinion anchored by Chief Justice William Rehnquist, stated regarding the federal ban on corporate and labor union expenditures, and I quote, "The federal legislative adjustment of the federal election laws in a cautious advance, step by step, to account for the particular legal and economic attributes of corporations and labor organizations warrant considerable deference. It also reflects a permissible assessment of the dangers posed by these entities to the electoral process." Went on to say, in order to prevent both actual and apparent corruption, Congress aimed a part of its regulatory scheme at corporations. The statute reflects a legislative judgment that the special characteristics of the corporate structure require particularly careful regulation. Nor will we second-guess a legislative determination as to the need for prophylactic measures where corruption is the evil feared. As we said in California Medical Association v. FEC, the differing structures and purposes of different entities may require different forms of regulation in order to protect the integrity of the electoral process. The governmental interest in preventing both actual corruption and the appearance of corruption of elected representatives has long been recognized. First National Bank of Boston v. Bellotti, Supra, and there is no reason why it may not in this case be accomplished by treating unions, corporations, and similar organizations different from individuals. In 1986, in the Massachusetts Citizens for Life case, the Supreme Court stated regarding the federal ban on corporate expenditures in campaigns, "This concern over the corrosive influence of concentrated corporate wealth reflects the conviction that it is important to protect the integrity of the marketplace of political ideas. Direct corporate spending on political activity raises the prospect that resources amassed in the economic marketplace may be used to provide an unfair advantage in the political marketplace. The resources in the treasury of a business corporation are not an indication of popular support for the corporation's political ideas. They reflect instead the economically motivated decisions of investors and customers. The availability of these resources may make a corporation a formidable political presence, even though the power of the corporation may be no reflection of the power of its ideas. By requiring that corporate independent expenditures be financed through a political committee expressly established to engage in campaign spending, Section 441B seeks to prevent this threat to the political marketplace. The resources available to this fund, as opposed to the corporate treasury, in fact, reflect popular support for the political positions of the committee. If anyone has doubts about the influence of big-moneyed special interests on policymakers in this town, let me recall a personal observation. During the Senate Commerce Committee's consideration of the 1996 Telecommunications Act, every company affected by the legislation had purchased a seat at the table with soft money. Consequently, the bill attempted to protect them all, a goal that is obviously incompatible with competition. Consumers, who only give us their votes, had no seat at the table, and the lower prices that competition produces never materialized. Cable rates went up, phone rates went up, and huge broadcasting giants received billions of dollars in digital spectrum, property, and that was property that belonged to the American people, and they got it for free. They got it for free, billions of dollars worth of spectrum. Information gathered from various sources in the press at the time indicated that the special interest groups involved spent nearly $150 million to lobby Congress on telecommunications reform. And they all came out on top at the expense of the American consumer. Similarly, Mr. President, the pharmaceutical industry has spent millions of dollars to sway lawmakers against the idea of drug importation. In the 2008 election cycle, pharmaceutical companies gave almost $30 million in campaign contributions to members of Congress. Just this year, according to an article published in the June 3rd edition of The Hill, the prescription drug industry has given more than $1 million to both Republicans and Democrats. And these contributions were from the limited funds of corporate PACs, a fraction of the flood of money that could be spent out of corporate treasuries if the Supreme Court changes the law by judicial fiat. Mr. President, as my colleagues know, for many years, my colleague and friend from Wisconsin, Senator Feingold, and I fought to ban soft money, the large, unregulated donations from corporations, labor unions, and wealthy individuals from federal elections. As the sponsors of the Bipartisan Campaign Finance Reform Act, we submitted, together with our colleagues from the House, Representatives Shays and Meehan, a brief for the court. In this brief, we stated, more fundamentally, Austin and McConnell were correctly decided. Unlimited expenditures supporting or opposing candidates may create at least the appearance of corruption, as Caperton v. A.T. Massey Coal Company illustrates. The tremendous resources business corporations and unions can bring to bear on elections, and the greater magnitude of the resulting apparent corruption, justify treating corporate and union expenditures differently from those by individuals and ideological nonprofit groups. So, too, does the countervailing free speech interest of the many shareholders who may not wish to support corporate electioneering, but have no effective means of controlling what corporations do with what is ultimately the shareholders' money. Austin was rightly concerned with the corruption of the system that will result if campaign discourse becomes dominated not by individual citizens, whose right it is to select their political representatives, but by corporate and union war chest amassed as a result of the special benefits the government confers on these artificial persons. That concern remains a compelling justification for restrictions on using corporate treasury funds for electoral advocacy, constraints that ban no speech, but only require that it be funded by individuals who have chosen to do so. The holdings of Austin and McConnell, that it is constitutional to require business corporations to use segregated funds contributed by shareholders, officers, and employees for express candidate advocacy or its functional equivalent, remain sound today. The interest in preventing actual or apparent corruption of the electoral process and protecting shareholders provide compelling justification for such requirements, which neither unduly burden nor overbroadly inhibit protected speech. The corporate PAC option, moreover, is ideally suited to balancing the First Amendment interests of corporate entities and their shareholders. It allows the corporation to direct political spending only to the extent that shareholders have personally decided to contribute for that specific purpose. It